Brian Barnett is just a regular guy. He's not a doctor. He has no legal license in any field of mental or emotional health. Brian Barnett merely shares the insights he's gained from his personal experiences for anybody who may choose to use such information as he or she personally chooses, while accepting full responsibility for his or her own individual thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and actions. Brian Barnett assumes no responsibility whatsoever for anybody's individual choice to expose himself or herself to any information that Brian Barnett shares. And by listening to this program, you're acknowledging that you, and only you, are responsible for your own thoughts, feelings, and actions. Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back to The Last Symptom. I'm Brian Barnett, the creator and host. I almost said, welcome back to The Last Symptom of Borderline Personality Disorder. That was the name of this show 2 years ago. So if that gives you any idea how tired my brain is right now. But welcome back to The Last Symptom. I'm so glad to have you here, and I hope you're having a wonderful week. The weekend is quickly approaching, so of course I hope you do something real nice for yourself, as I always do. And we've got a special guest today that we're going to be talking to. Her name is Emma, and she's 19 years old, and she's been following me here for a few years, and I finally got a chance to talk to her, and I think you're really going to enjoy getting to hear Emma talk about herself and talking about her experience and with a borderline personality disorder and emotional health. Before we get into that discussion, though, what I'd like to do is tell you about thelastsymptom.com. That's my website full of free resources that I really hope that you take advantage of. The website also offers some paid services, such as one-on-one conversations with me, either on the phone or by means of Zoom video conferencing. And another thing that I wanted to announce is that the Last Symptom Fundamentals course, the intensive course that I've offered live on a couple of occasions now, will be available in a pre-recorded format starting on Monday. On the Monday after this episode of the Last Symptom podcast airs. So let's see, that'll be Monday. I need a calendar. Let me take a looky-see here. All right, so today's Thursday the 22nd of October, 2020. The Fundamentals course will be available on Monday the 26th, so in just a few days. I will provide links for that over at thelastsymptom.com. It's about a 40-hour intensive course. Now, it might not quite reach 40 hours. The live version is 40 hours. But you got to understand that in the live format, the passage of time works a little bit different. It's not just me talking in the live format. So it's going to be close to 40 hours. It's about a 2-week course. And as I've been working on it, I've been dividing it up into 4-hour days, trying to reach 10 days. By the time it publishes on Monday, I might have rearranged that into 3-hour days for 10 days or something like that. But at any rate, it's the same experience as the live course minus the other live participants. So to work around that, I have created a special group on Facebook that is limited to only people who go through this course. And the name of that group is called The Last Symptom Alumni. And currently, there are only 21 members in there. It's an entirely different group from my Facebook education group that I've been hosting now for the past few years, which I'm still hosting. And everybody's welcome to answer the entry questions and join that group. But this group, the Last Symptom Alumni Facebook group, is specifically reserved for people who have had the experience of going through a Last Symptom structured course, such as this one that's about to release on Monday. And the reason for that is because I want everybody who has had the experience of going through the course or who is going through the course of being able to form relationships with other people who have had the same experience and to use them as a resource, a supportive resource moving forward. So, because those who take the pre-recorded course won't have other classmates going through the course with them in a live format, my workaround for that was to create this new group, the Last Symptom Alumni, on Facebook. So you'll be able to look forward to that if you go through the structured course. And the course itself, I just think is just going to be so beneficial for so many people. I really hope that you will at least consider taking it. And so all the information that you'll need will be up on the website sometime on Monday. That's my plan anyway, best made plans and all that, but that's my plan. So be sure to check in with thelastsymptom.com on Monday, where I will be really trying to get this intensive course, this 2-week intensive course, polished and finished and up on the site by then. Of course, a great support for my overall body of work is donations. And if you'd like to leave a donation for my overall body of work, which includes this podcast, please run over to thelastsymptom.com, and you can do that right from the donation tab. And I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who has supported my work financially here in the last couple weeks. Today's episode of the podcast is thanks to you. I really appreciate it. I can't say that enough. It really is because of your donations and your support through the paid services and those sorts of things that makes this possible for me and makes it possible for you to hear this show every week. Well, with that said, I know you're all eager to hear what Emma's got to say, so let's just get right into it today, and I hope you enjoy this. So I'm here with Emma Jones, and she's telling me all these great stories. Emma, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very good. So to give everybody an idea of who you are, who I'm talking to here, tell us a little bit about yourself, your age. Don't give us any, don't tell us the town you live in, but give us kind of an idea where you live, whereabouts you live, and we'll start there.
Sure. Yeah, so I live in British Columbia, Canada. I've lived here all my life. I am 19 years old. Some of my hobbies, I guess you could say, are skateboarding and art, and I like to go fishing and out in nature. And I have borderline personality.
When you go fishing, what do you fish for?
Like trout. I just actually moved
Really?
to Vancouver Island, so we have more of an opportunity to go out and do like saltwater fishing. So I'd really like a chance to go out and catch a salmon one day. I haven't, but I think that would be really fun.
I hear you guys have some really nice walleye up there.
We do.
A lot of people around here go.
It's lovely. That is why I wanted to move to the island. I love the landscapes here, and I just think it's a beautiful spot.
I've always been a bass fisherman, and like a freshwater bass fisherman. And the guy who really taught me how to bass fish, one day he come up to me and he said, "Brian," he said, "I found something to dethrone bass." He said, I love bass and I love bass fishing, but he says, bass got nothing on walleye."
Walleye.
So he goes up north. Yeah, walleye.
Walleye. I've never heard of that fish.
Oh, he goes up north to like Michigan.
Okay.
On the lake, the Great Lake. If you cross it, it'll take you to Canada, won't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, he just said that walleye is just a fantastic fish. Tastes good. Oh. It's fun to fish.
That's
fresh water.
I've never even heard of that kind of fish. I'll have to look more into that then.
Tell us about your art. You were telling me something here just before we started recording about art.
So, I've been into art like all of my life. I really attached to it. It pretty much became a lot of my identity. Um, and so when I was in middle school, maybe 13 or 14, I started getting the opportunity to actually have my cartoons published in the local newspapers. Our local mall has like a advertisement book. I got my cartoons published in there as well. So yeah, I've been doing art ever since I can remember. I've been very passionate about it, and that's maybe one of my proudest things about
Really?
myself from that age. Yeah, I thought just really proud of pushing myself and sharing my art with potentially like thousands of people. So yeah,
Were you doing a 4-panel comic strip, or were you doing a single panel comic strip?
there are about 4 panels, I'd say. Yeah, I think they're kind of different every time. They kind of, since I was younger, I think they were a bit more lax on like the rules and stuff and kind of let me work a bit more with my creativity, which I really appreciated.
In high school, were you known as the cartoonist?
I was
Were you known
definitely
as an
known
artist?
as an art girl. Yeah, I was always in the art room. I mean, I would hang out there sometimes on my lunch breaks and stuff. Some of my favorite teachers were the art teachers. That's what a lot of people would know me as, I think, as the girl who was really into art.
We were just talking before we started recording here that I was a cartoonist too. I was published by the time I was 13, but I started 6 years old was when I really started drawing serious, getting really into it. And the shapes, drawing shapes, and to this day, shapes create an emotional response in me. It's almost like I can feel the shapes inside of myself. And having a blank sheet of white paper in front of me is just, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the greatest feeling in the world because I know I have the freedom to put whatever I want across that canvas.
Yeah, there's so much potential. I love that.
You said that you like to paint too. You like to paint with acrylic.
Yeah,
Have you
for
ever painted with
painting.
oil?
Oh, to be honest, not very much. Maybe a little bit. Like in high school, I've bought a lot of art supplies over the years, so I've tested out different things.
Well, it's nice to get to know you here. I know you already, but it's nice for everybody else to get a chance to know you.
Yeah,
Tell everybody how you come across the last symptom and how
sure.
long ago that was. And
Sure. So I guess it would have been the end of 2017. I was 16, turning 17. My ex best friend, she was hospitalized and she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And we started talking about it together. And I just realized how similar we were to each other. And she ended up recommending your podcast to me because she heard about it through another friend. So I never went searching out for the podcast like on my own in the beginning, but she was just raving about you. And so I thought I'd give it a shot. So I was, that would have been 17 years old that I started listeing to you.
I meant to ask you about your friend yesterday. You
Oh,
said that you guys
I
weren't friends
could
no
tell
more.
you a lot
And,
about her.
well, we won't pull her into
Sure.
to, I think some people think that I'm supposed to be perfect, and I try to emphasize that I'm just a normal guy, that I'm not perfect. Have you ever heard the saying, never meet your heroes?
I haven't.
Have you ever heard that expression?
No.
So, if you're like a fan of some movie star or something, the idea is that if you meet them and get to know them, it's just going to totally disappoint you.
I totally see that.
And, you're never going to be able to look at that person the same again. But because you've built them up, in your mind better than what they actually are. So to try to prevent that from happening, I'm constantly trying to, assure people that I'm just a regular person, that,
Right. And
I
the
still make
human
mistakes and stuff.
condition falls in there.
Right. Right. A lot of recovery involves just acknowledging the human condition, distinguishing what is just, being a person from what is an emotional disorder. Well, I'm glad you found me.
I'm glad I found you as well.
So that was 2017.
Yes. Just the end. So I would have started probably in 2018, but around there, yeah.
Okay, thereabouts.
Mhm.
And we didn't actually get to talk, you and I, until just the other night. And I was really impressed with you, so I asked you to come on the show. Let me think of some juicy questions I can ask you. You know,
Sure.
some really scandalous things.
Okay. Let's get into
What?
it.
Are you ready for this?
Sure.
So, with your experience with borderline personality disorder, would you like to tell people, what are kind of the primary things that you were dealing with when you discovered my work? Let's talk about that for a little bit. And then once we
Okay.
get into that, what I'd like to talk about after is kind of the advancement you've made since then. You said the other day that you've noticed changes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. What I would say regarding what I was dealing with a lot when I started listening to you, a lot of anger. I would say one of the biggest issues of mine is controlling my anger. Yeah, I just had this constant rage basically, and I already felt shame for my feelings and I would try to suppress them, and then the anger would be so intense and I wouldn't be able to control it and I'd lash out, and it would emotionally hurt family members and friends, and I would feel even more shame over it. And it was just like a very vicious cycle where I would try and suppress specifically the anger, and it wouldn't go well. And I just feel almost like this evil, I don't know, uncontrollable monster. Some of the other things that I was really struggling with, I've had an eating disorder since maybe I was 11 years old. And it was pretty bad around that time, specifically bulimia. Anytime, something uncomfortable came up that I didn't want to think about or deal with, like food and my body and all that stuff, was just something that I could totally latch onto and focus on instead of actually accepting what I was feeling and asking myself what I was feeling. I struggled a lot with self harm as well, specifically cutting myself, burning myself. So I have an arm full of scars, which I've had a long process of like coming to terms with it and accepting that this is what my body looks like. It's hard because, I did these things to my body when I was like 14 to 17. That was the worst of the self-harming. And it's just like I have my whole life ahead of me and I have all these imperfections or whatever on my body, and already being in the recovery process from BPD, it's distanced me from the self-harming a lot, and I look at it sometimes and I'm almost surprised, that is something that I actually used to do to myself. And I think I would almost dissociate when I would self-harm, so I wouldn't even really, I wasn't present when it was happening. I almost was just in this, like, I just couldn't.
Zone out.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like on this path and I couldn't really just slow down and like be like, wow, what am I doing to myself? And also just like in general, I did not know who I was. Like I took everything personally. School was hell for me because I thought everyone was trying to make a personal attack on me. I mean, it it was really it was really hard, and I would, see different things people were doing and be like, that's what this is what's normal, so I would try and copy them, and it was never like a real me. I was always grabbing these different parts of my friends and like smushing it together kind of and like forming this mold of myself, but it wasn't actually me. It was just me imitating my
Right.
friend's sense of humor, imitating their style, imitating whatever they wanted to talk about. I don't know, that kind of stuff. That's a lot what I struggled with.
Sure. Have you noticed improvement in those things, in all of those things, or just some of those things, or in the last couple of years, what have you seen change?
One of my favorite things that you say are people are like the weather. There's so something you have no control over. So what really changed things for me was just learning that I can take responsibility for myself and what I can control in my life, and that people's reactions and how they choose to think, how they choose to speak, that is more of a reflection on them. And it's not the world doesn't revolve around me and people wanting to attack me or hurt my feelings. And I'm just able to see now that it's not not a personal attack, but before it used to be someone would do something I wouldn't like and it would be confirmation that I'm worthless and that I'm a bad person. I don't really see things that way anymore. I think sometimes I still, because I'm a human, I get pulled back into that thinking, but that is something that has
Sure.
had a huge change in the past few years.
So when you get pulled back into it, you're quick to forgive yourself for that.
Yeah, I think I'm a lot more forgiving.
When you mentioned your imperfections, how did you feel mentioning that to 100 million people? Mentioning that you have imperfections.
It's kind of
That
scary, but
probably isn't something that you would have said.
definitely not. Yeah, no chance. But I don't know. I feel like I'm just not ashamed anymore, is really what it comes down to. And I know that there are so many other ways to self harm, anyways.
Oh yeah, yeah. It can be all kinds of. It can come in all kinds of forms, can it?
Yeah,
So for people listening, let me describe Emma here for just a minute, just so you can know who to imagine. She's a young woman, obviously. She's 19. She's got blonde hair, and she's just a beautiful, beautiful woman. She's got the most
thank
beautiful
you,
eyes,
friend. Thank you so
and
much.
got a very beautiful face. And so that's, obviously anybody is worried about imperfections. I remember I used to be pretty stressed out about my imperfections too. Here's my other question for you about that.
Mhm.
When you hear me talking about my imperfections and laughing about them on the Last Symptom podcast, what do you think about that? Do you think, boy, he must have come a long way? Because I don't know if I could do that. Like when I talk about my Quasimodo mangled toe. Uh, what do you think about that? Obviously, all of us have things about ourselves like those things, right?
Sure, of course.
And
And I think like I have those things too, that like the self-harm scars, and I don't love how my toes look. I don't love the bridge of my nose. I think that, everyone just does have those things, and it
here's the thing: when you were talking about your imperfections, what I noticed was that you kind of hesitated there for a minute, kind of like you went inside yourself and were thinking about the imperfections,
sure.
and you weren't certain if you wanted to even mention them, and then you did mention them, which I thought was courageous. And I thought that that was a demonstration of progress for sure. And so I wanted to kind of celebrate that here you just told a whole, thousands of people that you have imperfections
Right.
that probably you would have wanted to pretend away a couple years ago. So
Definitely.
that made me think, I wonder if she learned that from listening to the podcast when I talk about my imperfections and I
Mhm.
just kind of do it um, with no shame whatsoever, and I kind of laugh, when I like
Oh
laugh
yeah,
about my toe or laugh about.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think
My
the way
shorts getting yanked down. And
I think adding humor to anything can make it 100 times better. And the way that you kind of talk about your imperfections, or you're not like talking down on yourself, it's just the way things are. And yeah, I think that it made me not like think that it's funny what my body looks like, but it's really, really not a big deal. And you continue about your day, you go on.
yeah. Yeah, I think I told you the other night that a lot of people think that recovery is identifying all these things we really dislike about ourselves, fixing them, and then liking ourselves.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's not the nature of genuine recovery.
Not
The
at
genuine
all.
recovery is uh, identifying things that will never change. They're unfixable. Like I got a freckle on my leg. Well, I mean, surgically I could have it removed, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not crazy about it. But the secret to emotional health is not running from these things, it's embracing these things. So a person finds contentment by not pretending like these imperfections don't exist, but deciding what you're just going to be living with for the rest of your life. What makes you who you are, and embracing those things, the bad along with the good.
Exactly. I think a good example of this is that I've started working out in the past few months, but I've really been doing it more for myself and for my own health and, bettering my body and taking care of it because, I talked about how I have an eating disorder. I was always, it was focused on working out to either punish myself or, it's because I don't deserve these certain things. Um, but now I kind of look at it in a way that this is the body that I have, that I was born with. And all I can do is just take the best care of it that I can. And I found that like exercising and just in a genuine, like wanting to take care of yourself way, it naturally gives you more confidence because I can see my body changing a little bit. I can see it getting a bit stronger. I can feel it getting stronger. And I'm not changing it because I don't like how it looks so much anymore. I'm changing it because it feels good to do that for myself.
Yeah, I've been doing that myself too, trying to get back into pre-COVID shape. I went to saw my doctor the other day. Not my doctor, but my daughter's doctor. I don't go to the doctor unless I'm dying of something. Then I go to the doctor. But my daughter's doctor is a guy who's 10 years older than me, so he's 55. He was looking ripped, and I said, "What in the world have you been doing? You look a lot different from the last time I was in here." And he said, "Yeah, man." He said, "This COVID-19 hit, and I don't know what it was." He said, "I wasn't really trying. I guess I was eating out less, going out to
Right.
restaurants less." And he said, "I started to drop weight. And so it encouraged me, and I just kept going." And he said, "Look at this." He pulls up his shirt, and he had a six pack, 55-year-old man. And I said,
Yeah.
it's unacceptable. You're walking around with that six pack, and I'm not. So um, that was my encouragement. That when this COVID-19 hit, the pandemic, man, I just really let things go and kind of got lost in my work, but not really getting out and doing much, except for like a backpacking trip in the summertime. But it wasn't enough to undo all the McDonald's Big Macs. So
Right.
it's come along good. I mean, I feel good. I feel a lot better than I did a couple months ago. We were talking about things that have improved since you discovered the last symptom and advancement that you've made. How about with the self-harm? It seemed like you were saying that had gotten better.
Definitely. I don't think it was one specific thing that just like stopped me from self-harming. It was a daily battle, and if I was not doing one self-harming strategy or technique, then I would rely on another one and I would just keep, finding these different ones. And it
Yeah,
didn't.
you had talked about suppressing it, and I was I was
Yeah.
going to say that suppressing these things is kind of like steam. It's like steam. You know, the energy behind it just converts into something else. Like like a lot of alcoholics, if they just stop drinking, but they never address the underlying emotional issues that are causing them to drink in the first place, well, then that drinking just turns into something else. So it's great that they're not drinking, but now they might be gorging on food. And, you know,
Yes.
their weight might go up 300 pounds because the energy behind that just goes from drinking into another numbing out type of behavior or another
Yeah. It's
coping thing.
with
So it
me.
was like it was like, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, but so before you were suppressing it, now do you still feel like you're suppressing it?
I don't. I'm not gonna lie and say I don't get urges, but right when I get them, I
Is that
think,
under stress?
yeah, it's not. When it was really bad, I would self harm for any reason. Now, when I get those urges, it'll be like a kind of elevated situation that's not, I can't really think of an example, but something that I've gotten worked up over. It's kind of big. And
Uh-huh.
the thought, it's a different kind of thought where I miss that release that it gave me. But I immediately think, I don't want to do that to my own body. Now I see it as like, why would I hurt my body? Like, why would I do that to myself? I don't. What I'm trying to say is like, the urges are kind of like automatic. I'm not sitting there wanting to hurt myself. I get the thought, but then I'm reminded, like, well, wait a second, like, this is because I was addicted to doing this for years and it gave me an emotional high. And I can see inside my rational mind, I can see that I don't want to hurt myself. And so I'm able to
Ah,
kind of like be like, no, like those are old urges from old Emma. And that was when I hated myself, and I'm not like that anymore. I respect my body. I'm not going to do those
oh, that's
things
excellent, Emma.
just because of some fast urge that comes up. Yeah,
So it sounds to me like you're kind of walking around always consciously aware of what you're feeling most of the time.
absolutely.
So you're
Yeah.
kind of observing your feelings and saying, okay, oh, that's great. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
half the
I feel
battle
like
right
I
there.
try my best to do that anyways.
That's excellent. How long would you say that you've been walking around consciously aware of, kind of observing what you're feeling and kind of being aware of your feelings like that?
Within the past year, I think I've noticed having the chance to be out of high school gave
Mhm.
me a lot more perspective on what life is actually like. I found over time I was able to more clearly identify my emotions and, yeah, not suppress them, because that is what gets me into those bad places so quickly, even still, is I don't want to deal with what I'm feeling. I'm like, oh, it's too much. It's too, like, why do yeah, I don't want to deal with it. But the second I do, I say, what am I feeling? I I don't deny what I'm feeling. I accept what I'm feeling. I don't see emotions as good or bad things. Over time, like, it's just been a lot more every single day that I really am in touch with what I'm actually feeling.
That happened early on in my recovery too. That was kind of one of the first things that I noticed was that I could no longer walk around oblivious to what I was feeling. My whole life, I just walked around really not paying attention to what I felt, not really consciously aware of what I was feeling. I mean, I knew that I was feeling things, but I wasn't really observing it, observing what I was feeling. And that was almost an immediate change for me once I realized the importance of feelings and especially what was at the root of a lot of the things that I was feeling. That very next thing really was then me beginning to be conscious of what I was feeling. So I'd be at the store and, if I started to get frustrated, it would be like an alarm. It would kind of like draw my attention to it. And so my attention would go to what I was feeling, and I'd start observing it. I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling anxious, and then I would start analyzing that. Why am I feeling frustrated? And so, what a beautiful thing. That's really good work right there. Right there is just tremendous, because a lot of people listening to us right now, they're still stuck in the stage where they're just walking around and their feelings are just firing off without their even being conscious of it happening, or
Right.
really being conscious of what they're specifically feeling at different times. Um, so I'd just like to encourage listeners to kind of follow your example, to try to get into that state where you're not just walking around and these things are happening, these feelings are happening underneath your radar. You really want to be kind of an observer. You want to be observing what you're feeling in different situations and trying to understand why.
I think that something just to start with for working on that is, in the beginning, I did not even understand what the emotions were. And so I wouldn't even bother to ask myself what I'm feeling because I didn't know what it was. And I had such a hard time figuring out what emotions they were. So learning about different emotions and
What did you do for that?
literally just studying emotions, just that's what it worked for
Okay,
me
cool.
anyways, just finding the definition of different emotions. um, I mean, you can find those like kind of like wheel charts where it says like the basic emotions like
Oh yeah.
sad, happy, and then it'll branch off of those. And I tried to pick and choose like which ones kind of matched with me, and I found
Uh huh.
like after, then I was like, okay, so this is the emotion I'm feeling now. Like, where can I go with that information?
Sure. Well, that's a good recommendation. Yeah. It has been said that human emotions are so many that you could never create a comprehensive list of all of the emotions that we as people feel.
That's a
Now,
good
there are
one.
the obvious ones. There's happy, there's sad, there's angry. Those are the obvious ones. But once you get into more nuanced territory, how about like when you're feeling angry and giddy at the same time, or how about when you're feeling frustrated and affectionate at the same time? There's so many nuances and variations of these feelings that you never know all of them. But i like I like what you did. You said, well, in order for me to be more conscious of my feelings, I'm going to go look up what some human emotions are, so that I can at least try to identify them. That's kind
Yeah.
of brilliant. Now, you're kind of a laid back person. Talking to you, you're kind of like laid back and easygoing. So when you talk about lashing out, a lot of people might have a hard time imagining you lashing out. I know that when a lot of people hear me now talking on the podcast, they think, well, he couldn't have been that bad when he had borderline personality disorder. Oh, I was bad. I was both a fighter and a lover. I'd lose my mind. I'd go into like Wolverine animal mode, when I'd get really mad. So that's what I want to know about you. Could you paint a picture for us?
Sure.
How comfortable are you painting a really brutal picture for us of what your lashing out looked like? What would you do? Would you knock things
Okay.
around? Would you
Sure.
bite people?
Um, when I was younger, it was just tantrums all the time. Like, my parents would like go into their
Stomping?
bedroom. Yeah, stomping. I would
Uh-huh.
lie on my back, put my feet against their door, and just bang my feet against their door. And I think my little sister learned that technique from me. Just
It was effective.
screaming, yeah, screaming, crying. Usually it was arguments with my parents when those big blow-ups would happen. When I got older, it almost became scary how the anger would translate into like me wanting to be not necessarily physical with someone else, but like I couldn't keep it inside. I had this rage. I remember describing it to my mom. I would just scream, I feel like I'm on fire because I it's just so incredibly intense. I didn't know what to do, and yeah, it's kind of embarrassing to talk about, but like even a few years ago, I would be screaming and crying. And, I remember sitting at our kitchen table and shoving the table across the room and or not smashing, but hitting a chair to the ground. And I've broken things. And it's really weird to, to be like, even sitting here now thinking about like, wow, that was really something that I would do, that I
Yeah.
had
Well,
that
there's a lot.
inside of
There's a
me.
lot of people. There's a lot of people listening right now who have either dealt with that themselves or are dealing with that themselves. And that's gotten better.
Oh yeah. And like it's such a relief to like,
What happens now whenever you get into a situation that normally would have, before sent you into something like that? What kind of dialogue starts happening in your head when you start to feel you know, we were just talking about how so much of the battle is being conscious of what you're feeling,
mhm,
right? So I'm sure that plays a big role in
definitely.
this now being improved for you.
Yeah, yeah. It all comes back to that stuff that we were talking about, is just seeing what I was really feeling, and also understanding the component of anger, that it's like the example you use, you're like locked in a room with this 24/7 with the person that you despise, and you have to deal with them, and that anger, it's um shit.
That anger is shit. Boy, that's perfect.
It is. I was going somewhere with that. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I think I may know where you were going at it with. So one of my follow-up questions on that was going to be being conscious of what you're feeling probably helps, and then understanding that the reasons for the anger are not what they appear on the surface.
Yes, yes, sorry. That's
Probably helps.
exactly what I was trying to get at. Yeah. That made like a huge difference.
Is this the first time you've ever been interviewed?
Yes, it is. I've never, I mean, I was in a writer's camp when I was
Oh, you're doing
younger, so we
great.
practiced interviews, but thank you. Yeah, this is never done anything like this before.
My daughter, she was working on G's, like writing the letter G the other day, and she was
Okay.
just like so angry and frustrated. And I said, "This is the very first time in your entire life you even tried to write the letter G. And
Yeah.
don't be so hard on yourself. You're really good. No sense of hating herself over the letter G. I mean, if you're going to hate yourself, it should at least be over the letter, I don't know, R or something." You're fresh out of high school. You've been out for a year now?
This is actually my second year out of high school, but I've done one complete year without it.
How's life outside of high school going for you?
Now I've had the chance to do so many more things that I'm a lot more confident in myself. Like, moving out, finding a place to rent, and just more responsibilities come along with that. And I moved about 7 hours away. I moved.
You said a boat. You said a boat.
you, you got me.
You said you don't say a boat.
I didn't think I did. Just
So how far away
choice.
did you move away?
Um, I'm actually not sure of the exact amount of time, because it's a bit of a drive and then you have to take the ferry over. But it's about,
Oh, you do?
yeah, so it's about a 7 hour trip, I'd say.
Are you on an island?
On Vancouver Island.
So if the world gets attacked by zombies, you would be safe as long as they didn't bring any ferries across.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Unless the breakout started on Vancouver Island. Then we would
God
all be
forbid.
safe. Interesting.
So I've grown up in like my hometown. The population was maybe like 12,000 or something like that. So I've
Oh,
always
small
lived,
town.
yeah. So and I've never really liked that. So moving here was like really incredible. I'm just not really one of those people who likes that small town lifestyle, knowing everyone's secrets and
You like be,
whatnot.
you like being where the action is, and
Exactly. Yeah. And there's just a lot more like-minded people here, I guess you could say.
you're getting life started. Let's go ahead.
I think that this is kind of maybe an interesting part that I could share is that is when I wanted to confront my mom, is right around September of my first year out of high school. I was like, I listened to all of this amazing information you put out here. I've learned so much. I want my mom to understand this better. I want her to take responsibility. I want this stuff. That didn't go so well. We got into huge fights about it. And if you ask her, she'll say I moved out. If you ask me, I'd kind of say she kicked me out. But confronting her with it was not the best idea. And so I was basically living at my now ex-best friend's house and her ex-boyfriend's house. We all decided to move in together and get a place because I didn't really have anywhere else to go. And I think that was a really important part of my BPD recovery, was that big blow up with my mom. Like, I actually don't regret having it. I really learned how to set boundaries, and it was so hard for me to pull away from my mom because we would have this very intense relationship where I would tell her everything. Like, she was my confidant. I loved her so much, but we still butted heads over the BPD. And I had decided, I told her I can't keep in contact with you if you're not going to accept what happened in the past. I don't know, it was very frustrating. She was like, I believe you have BPD, but it's like she's just not willing to accept exactly her role in what happened in my childhood. So I felt like she was almost denying that I have borderline personality disorder, because the only way you can have it is from emotional abuse from parents. So I followed through with my boundary and I didn't talk to her for like months, basically. I was living in the town next over to her town. And that was really, really hard because my mom was someone who I went to for everything, but I decided to set this boundary with her where she wasn't willing to make any changes. She wasn't willing to accept her role, and I just couldn't handle having that relationship with her anymore. What happened in the end, there was no, I'm sorry that it's my fault you have BPD. I'm sorry. There was no like what I was looking for, a big apology or something, but that's really not what you should be looking for anyways. But I saw in her actions how she changed, and she went to therapy. She listened to your
Was that new?
podcast.
Was that?
Yes. Yes. She started working on herself in different ways. And I think that's better than an apology, really. Changed behavior is more what I'm looking for. So yeah.
Demonstrations of remorse.
Yes.
Do you remember me talking to you about that teeter-totter? Remember, I was talking about the teeter-totter.
Yeah. That's stuck in
Did
my
I mention that to you? Yes. Okay, right. So the teeter-totter is this. For all of our mistakes and our indiscretions and everything we did while we were ignorant and had borderline personality disorder, the standard that we hold ourselves to is that we ourselves have to demonstrate remorse. What is a demonstration of remorse? It's not saying I'm sorry. A demonstration of remorse is when we do the work to try to figure out what we did wrong and why. Once we do that, we are demonstrating genuine remorse, and then we qualify for forgiveness. And that's nice because it doesn't matter if anybody forgives us or not. It would be nice if they did, but that's up to them if they do or not. The important part of that is that whether they do forgive us or not, we have met the qualifications for forgiveness by demonstrating genuine remorse. And then we look inward and we say, now I can forgive myself. Why can I forgive myself? Just because? No. We can forgive ourselves because we're meeting the qualifications for forgiveness. We're demonstrating remorse. And the teeter-totter comes in because the balance, the balance that the teeter-totter finds is that we also apply that to other people. I'm sorry is not enough. I want to see a demonstration of remorse. If you do that, you qualify for me to forgive you. If you don't qualify for me to forgive you. But people say, well, that's not very nice. Well, the whole concept of boundaries, if you're inappropriately extending forgiveness to people who are not sorry, have demonstrated no remorse, then you just simply don't understand boundaries and how they're supposed to work, boundaries and conditions. But the nice thing about it, the teeter-totter, is that we're not holding them to any standard that we don't hold our own selves to.
That's exactly right.
We expect them to meet the qualifications to be forgiven, and we expect ourselves to meet the certain qualifications in order for us to be able to forgive ourselves, and also for others to hopefully forgive us too. I think about the people in my past. I don't know if they know about this work. I don't know if they, have even Googled me or anything like that. But whether or not I ever get a letter saying, Brian, I'm really impressed with how you've turned this thing around, and I forgive you. Whether or not that ever happens is kind of irrelevant, because the important thing is that I know that I have at least met the conditions that qualify me for forgiveness. So it's not too permissive and it's not too critical. It's just perfect right there in the middle, like that teeter-totter.
That's right.
But that's what you're mentioning. When you're talking about your mom,
Right.
you needed certain things in order for the relationship to continue. And then once she demonstrated an interest in understanding these things, well, then she met the qualifications for a relationship.
Exactly. And then when she, showed herself in those different ways, I started saying, okay, yeah, let's hang out, let's go get coffee, let's talk about things. And I was able to share more about borderline personality disorder with her, and she was more just willing to hear about it and stuff. To be honest, I think she's still in denial about a lot of it, but that doesn't mean I haven't seen a lot of change.
Right. Well, you didn't start off, on the first day being as advanced as you would have liked to have been either, right? So that's that teeter-totter thing again. You recognize the need to allow yourself time to progress, because this is a process. And we grant that to other people too, like our mothers. I would grant that to my dad if he were to even just what your mother's doing, and it's just enormous that she's even going to somebody, trying to get answers, trying to understand. The fact that she doesn't understand everything at this point is forgivable.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's because it's not reasonable to think that she would understand everything at this point.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you really wanted to share that I haven't asked you? When you hear this, you're going to regret not including it.
I just want to say you have the total control to take your own life into your hands anytime you want. And I wouldn't rely so much on the mental health professionals, because personally, I've been in the mental health system since I was maybe, let's see, I must have been 14, and none of them were able to point me in the right direction at all. None of them gave me the right diagnosis. When I would ask for help with BPD, I've had people tell me I don't have BPD. I've had people tell me some of the symptoms are fun to experience. I I've had them say, like, let's just focus on
Say that
fixing
again.
the symptoms.
You said that some of you had
Yeah,
some of them say that there were
it was
fun
fun. It
symptoms.
Yeah, like the dissociation part of it. He said, "Well,
Oh,
it's kinda
mhm.
nice to just get to be all spacey and whatnot," or something like that. That was a really weird time.
That
I
was a
mean,
professional.
yes, I went to the hospital because I was having a crisis, and that is the man who I got to talk to. So all I want to say is just you as an adult, like, can take control of your own life. Some days, are gonna be easier than others, but I just recommend diving right in by yourself. I mean, having a counselor along the side is can be very helpful, but a lot of the information out there set me back, and I could have even been recovering faster and quicker than I already have been. So I just want to encourage everyone to not wait for someone else to save you or help you. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Don't wait for somebody else to save you. Not even Brian Barnett in The Last Symptom. You really, it comes down to you taking control of the situation for yourself, saying that if this is going to get fixed, I'm going to have to do it.